Hello and welcome to the channel, Mr. Cuervo Racing. You can follow us on YouTube here as well as on Facebook at Cuervo-Racing. Today we're going to talk about horsepower to weight ratios, why it's important, why you should do the simple equation, know where you're at, have a goal to where you want to be, why sometimes a light bike with less horsepower can keep up with a bike that makes substantially more horsepower. To start off, we're going to say we're going to do a giveaway. I'm going to give away one of our drag lightweight cam covers, and at the end of this, I will tell you how. So I made up this graph for you guys to see a visual on horsepower to weight ratios. And down the left side here, I have bike weights, bike and rider weights. These are just generals in 25-pound increments. So that would be in pounds. If you're using metric kilograms, you can do the same equation. It's going to result in a different number, but as long as you keep that as a base, then you can proceed. And then up top here, I started kind of a general 60 to 100 horsepower range. It's going to suit most bikes that guys are modifying. So what we're doing here is basically you take your bike weight, bike and rider weight, and then you divide that by your horsepower. And then you will get whichever number comes up. If you're making 80 horsepower and you have a 250-pound bike with a 150-pound rider, you're going to come over here you're going to be at 5.0. 5.0 is 5 pounds per every horsepower that your bike is making. So each horsepower is pushing around 5 pounds. And why that's important to know is because you can use that knowledge to increase either your horsepower or decrease your weight and make that number lower. You want to have the lowest horsepower to weight ratio as possible. This is going to make your bike faster overall. So at the high end over here, you see if you got a really heavy bike, a really heavy rider, and not a lot of horsepower, 10.0, 10 pounds per horsepower. This is really common with like a standard dune bike with some bolt-ons, a cam, piston, throttle body for 700 in that 10.0 range. And then up here at the high side, if you have a really light bike, a really light rider, this number here at 275, that's out of the reach of Raptor 700 territory. But let's say you have a 450 on some spray. It's possible you could be up here at 2.75, 3 range. So doing that quick equation, kind of seeing where you're at, and going from there. So I will be posting this chart on our page. But what I'm going to show you here is an idea of why a lighter rider on a lighter bike can make way less horsepower and still be a good race for a higher horsepower bike. So let's say you're up here, you got a pretty big motor and making 100 horsepower, and you're sitting right here at a 5.0. Coming across there, you got a 500-pound combo, 300-pound bike, 200-pound rider. You're sitting at a 5 pounds per horsepower ratio. Well, there might be another guy here, let's say on a lighter 450 base bike, and he's making 70 horsepower range, still at 5.0 power to weight ratio on a bike making 30 less horsepower, but it is substantially lighter. It's 150 pounds lighter. Really light bike, a lighter rider by 50 pounds, and still at the same horsepower to weight ratio. That's going to, these numbers in general are going to get you down the track, get you through the sand or dirt, whatever range. These are generalized numbers. There's a lot of other factors that come into the equation, but this is general idea of what it's going to take to get you there. And this same type of equation is used in quarter mile drag racing for automotive stuff, where you're looking at the weight of the car and how much horsepower it makes. They can calculate out essentially what it's going to do quarter mile time. So having this info, power to weight, that just shows you, though, you might come across a 70 horse 450 base bike that's light, and you think you're big and bad at 100 horsepower and not thinking about your power to weight ratio. So if you can get down in weight, say you lose 50 pounds on the bike, now you got a 250 pound Raptor with a 200 pound rider. You can sacrifice on a rider weight and cut weight off the bike, but that puts you at 4.5. So you can continue to go down here. Okay, you put a lighter rider, now you're 4.0. So you're at 100 horsepower, 400 pound combination, 150 pound rider, 250 pound bike at a 4.0. You come over here on the other side, this same bike before that was 70 horsepower. He's going to have to come all the way up to in between 85 and 90 horsepower to be equivalent to where you're at. So all of a sudden you make you make him push a whole lot harder to get to where you're at, just by the only thing you've touched is dropped a weight. So all of a sudden, maybe he's maxed out on weight. He's got to pick up a bunch more horsepower to get there. So you can use this graph, kind of see where you're at and what's most effective to do. So there's one other thing that goes with this, is deciding whether you want to lose weight on the bike or make more horsepower. Where is the money best spent? Say you got $2,000 and you need to see where that money's best spent. Is the money best spent on making another 10 horsepower? Jumping these from this column to this column? Or is the money best spent dropping 20 pounds, going from here to here, and essentially end up at the same spot? So you can do either. You can look at it both ways of, well, can I spend that money and make the bike lighter? The engine's going to not have to work as hard and be at the same power to weight ratio. So making more horsepower is always great. But in consequence, as you make more horsepower, sometimes the bike has to get heavier because you're either going longer on it, you're increasing chain size or stuff like that to support the horsepower. Maybe a more paddle, more tire on it. You start adding weight as you're making more horsepower sometimes. So looking at this, you can kind of see what the best range to get to is and how effective it is to either make more power or drop the weight to get to that number. A lot of times going from 90 to 95 horsepower is a lot less money than going from 95 to 100. This jump in here gets really expensive. So a lot of times you get low 90s, and it's way more effective to drop the weight and spend the money there than it is to try and increase that extra horsepower. So that being said, I'm going to post this on our Facebook page, and when you see this post, I'd like you to go to our Facebook page, Cuervo-Racing. You'll see this posted, and when you see this posted, what I'd like you to do, get involved a little bit here, is post your bike and rider weight, and post your horsepower. and divide those numbers and give your power to weight ratio. Just post that info. This doesn't have to be real numbers. I know a lot of you guys don't want to post your horsepower, but for fun, make something up, post something there. I'm going to give away this cam cover to somebody who comments on that. And I hope you can use this information. I hope I explained it well enough to make it purposeful for the time spent watching this video. So that's it for today. Look for this post. It's the first week of January right now, so guys watching this in the future, you're not going to be able to participate in that, but I will have this posted up here in the next day or two. So that's it for today. We'll talk to you soon.